Oh my god, I'm sorry if I'm ruining your podcast with my laughing.
You're listening to the all-new Culture Cast, Chicagoland's finest podcast.
I am the Gorehound.
I'm Nick.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Thor.
And we are the all-new Culture Cast.
We have a very special guest host tonight who already introduced himself, Thor. Thor, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find us at Thor's Hour of Thunder, which is hourofthunder.podomatic.com. And we actually have just started bringing the Gorehound on because we're doing reviewing horror movies for the whole we had whole month of September and whole month of October. So, yeah, Thor's Hour of Thunder. It's like this podcast minus any and all production value.
Well, you make us sound too good, I think. But
yeah, but you don't. Your intro is recorded and not just you singing an intro the way I do it. I used to have, to be fair, we're on episode like 560. For the first 300, I actually bothered to put a recorded intro music in.
Yeah,
but
so
now
they do have that on us. They have been around for much longer than the all new Culture Cast. Give them that.
But somehow we're just getting worse at it. So,
speaking of horror movies, we are in October. And so that means it is Halloween month. So we're going to kick off with some horror movies this month. And we're going to start off with a classic one, 1999's Blair Witch Project, which, as described by the DVD cover I have in front of me, scary as hell, genuinely frightening, one of the creepiest films since The Exorcist, chills you right to the core. Thumbs up! Creative, inventive, and ingenious. The last one was from Roger Ebert. I'm sure we all have opinions on that, which I'm excited to talk about. But before we get into anything further, we're going to go into one of our regular segments, what we've been watching. But I wanted to bring this up. Gorehound, do you know what week this is?
What week this is?
In relation to our show?
The newest edition.
I'm going to guess it's your guys' 1-year anniversary based on the number of episodes.
Yes, our first episode for the all-new Culture Cast was launched this week a year ago.
How do you pay attention to these things, and how do you remember?
Well, I'm the one who kind of manages our data and everything else. So, and posting the thing. So I kind of know. I knew it was in October. I knew it was the beginning of October, and it was posted October 5th, 2015. So this episode is going up on the 3rd. So it's the 1 year since we've kind of started this, and we're at. Let me double check here. Episode 43. So we've had a couple of weeks off here and there throughout the
that's pretty good. We've only missed 9 weeks, that's pretty good. Pretty on top of it.
Yeah. I figured we had to reference that until we moved on here. In the interest of moving things along. Let's get to our regular topic. What have you been watching? Anything interesting? Jen, you start us.
All right. So not to get too political, but I did watch...
Oh, she's getting political.
Yeah, definitely. I watched the debates on Monday with... my mother was over. And so we watched the debates, and... I have to say, better than any TV show I watched the rest of the week. Just phenomenally weird. Politics has gotten so weird. And, I wouldn't necessarily say people, have to see it, but I would say that if you're just interested in, coming up with, your 1980s, teen comedy villain, I think that, watching Trump in the debates, you would have a lot of material.
He's gonna close down the community center and build a high rise.
Yeah.
It's like Breaking 3.
Exactly.
I just feel like it was a very GIF-worthy endeavor. I feel like the internet has just got to be tons and tons and tons of GIFs about it. So, not that I'm not also watching regular TV, but I feel like that was That was some good TV.
There was an
I'll
overflowing
just say.
amount of content in that. It just kept on coming and coming and coming, and wouldn't stop.
Absolutely, because every minute you kept being like, well, this can't get weirder, and then it would get weirder.
So the local NBC News this morning played the entire 5-minute opening to SNL.
They played like a minute of it, but
it was still going. It's still going right now.
I didn't watch SNL because I go out on the weekends and have fun, but if I had, I'm sure it would have been on point.
No, I just love that NBC News was like, yeah, you know what, this sums it up better than us trying to cover the election. Here's just, Kate McKinnon knows what's going on.
Gorhan, what about you?
I've been very busy, but I feel like even though I'm very busy, I still fit in a whole bunch of movies. I've been watching 4 movies recently. I think I mentioned one of them before. I watched Civil War, the new Captain America, and it was as I expected it to be. It was like an inferior Avengers, but it was great to see Scarlet Witch and the Black Panther. That was super cool. I liked that.
I liked it a lot better than Age of Ultron. I thought that they Scarlet Witch and Ultron. I mean, and the Paul Bettany robot were
Vision.
just. Thank you. We're just so compelling in it.
Yes, I watched that. I was in Missouri for a while, and I was in a hotel room for that earlier part of the week, and so I was kind of forced into watching whatever was on TV. And I kind of just stumbled upon this movie called Begin Again, and it has Mark Ruffalo in it. And
that's the one with the musicians, right?
Yeah, it was surprisingly good.
Yeah.
So I watched that. Disappointments Room. I saw that one because, as we will soon discuss, that was the double feature at the drive-in. So that was after that. It's been a week or two since I saw it, and I cannot remember anything about it. So, if that says anything about the quality of it,
the only thing I took away from the trailer of that is that Kate Beckinsale is wearing the cheapest blonde wig I've ever seen in a major motion picture.
Yeah, she looked weird in it, and the last one I watched was we just rewatched High Fidelity because the girl apparently was digging some early John Cusack, and the guy looks like Moby, Jack Black. So.
That's how they advertise that movie, right? It's a guy who looks like Moby and a guy who is John Cusack.
Yeah. Dan, what have you been? Thor. What have you been watching?
Don't worry. You're getting me back for me calling you the wrong name on my podcast constantly since we started having you on. So I watched that new Fox TV show Pitch about the lady MLB pitcher, and actually it was our friend Jen here that recommended it to me, and it was super cool. I'm really excited for it. Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell appears to have prepared for his role as toward the end of his career catcher by eating everything. The dude does not look healthy in this. But it's a really good show, and it actually kind of I was looking at photos of him from 2 years ago, and he was super jacked. So I think he kind of did this on purpose to look like an end of his career baseball player. So yeah, I'd recommend that. It's surprisingly well done. It's got a really cool cast, and it's pretty intelligent for a serialized network drama.
All right.
Anyway,
what have you been watching?
What have I been watching? Not a whole lot. I know there was something I've been watching that I can't quite remember what it was at the moment, but the other thing that I did when I was preparing the other day for a get-together my wife and I were having, I put on the 1989 Batman movie starring Michael Keaton, just to have some background noise. First time I'd seen it in quite some time. That's a good movie. People might love the Christopher Nolan films, and they're good in their own way, but I think I gotta go with Keaton. But I don't know, just an enjoyable flick.
As Batman, yeah.
Now, was it you? No, I think it was Jeff that was saying that he didn't like Michael Keaton as Batman, but because he couldn't take him seriously, which is totally
I like
fair.
Michael Keaton a lot as Batman. I don't really like Jack Nicholson as the Joker.
Yeah.
I guess there's, to an extent, he's playing pretty much himself, but
yeah, I felt like I would have liked the movie more if he'd spent a lot more time before he fell into the bad. I felt like he was cooler as just kind of his like gangster character being a dick to Jack Palance.
Maybe I like it because of Jack Nicholson. I don't know. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah,
but I don't know. I like the style, I like the atmosphere of that film. That really, it's a comic booky kind of world that he lives in. Plus, Batman kills people indiscriminately, and it is glorious. Batman Returns does more of it when Batman literally ties a bomb on someone, smiles, and kicks him into a hole to blow up.
Well, I do kind of like Batman just being a dick.
Because Batman is a dick.
It's too funny. And yeah, I know I'm definitely in the minority about that. I know people love Nicholson and that. I think part of it is that I remember reading that like one of the other people that was in the running was Tim Curry, and I just thought him in 1989 would have been perfect as the Joker.
Yeah, that smile, man.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people in the running, I remember, for that role. And I think another top contender was Robin Williams. And when they were trying to sign Jack Nicholson, he was playing hardball. So they, in a dick move to Robin Williams, they said, like, all right, well, we're going to talk to Robin Williams. It looks like he's going to do it. And Nicholson didn't want to, like, lose out on it. So he, like, came back at the 11th hour and said, all right, fine, I'll do it. And they just, like, cut all contact to Robin Williams at that point. And to the point that Robin Williams was really bitter over losing out on that role. Which is not the first time he lost out to the role of the Joker, or the role of a Batman villain. He was later considered for the Riddler. And again, lost out last minute to Jim Carrey. And then rumor had it that he was again in line to play the Joker for The Dark Knight. Don't know how much truth there is in that, but
how do you know all of this?
I like behind the scenes stuff. It's interesting.
So I read such an internet fanboy, you know that.
Hey. So I read for that last part about The Dark Knight. That was apparently he was the entirety of that rumor, as far as I can tell, because I was reading up on that the other day, coincidentally, and he just kept doing interviews where he was like, "Yeah, I really want to be the Joker. I sure hope they call me."
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. Honestly, that makes more sense. So.
Than having like 60-year-old Robin Williams trying to beat up Christian Bale.
Yeah.
So Blair Witch Project.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
You know, Thor, we appreciate you, but there are certain things we do on this show before we jump into. We have to get to everyone's favorite subject or topic or feature. Gorehound, do you have a male crush of the week?
It's a two-timer, Mark Ruffalo.
No, why is Mark Ruffalo still a male crush of the week?
Because I've been thinking about it since last time we spoke. And because I watched Begin Again, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so good. And it's just, I don't know if, I mean, obviously we don't really have a whole lot of rules, but I don't know if like somebody can be like male crush twice, but
I don't care.
This is my favorite feature on the show. I'd like to point out as a listener.
Yeah, it's gaining popularity. I know.
My bride likes it. All right, let's move on here before my battery dies.
Perfect.
But because we go on tangents a lot, if you haven't noticed, so we're discussing the I would call it a modern classic if 20 years is still considered modern. Yeah. The Blair Witch Project. Now, before we go any further about what our opinions of the film are, very briefly, I want each person to kind of say when they first saw the movie. I mean, I know these answers, but our listener doesn't know. So, I'll start. I first saw it when it first came out. I didn't see it in theaters. A friend of mine was really good at bootlegging movies or getting them at the time, and so I watched it when he let me borrow his copy. Gorehound, when did you first see The Blair Witch?
I don't really have any like memory of it. I just know that when I saw it, I was like,
"Don't say what you thought of it. Just say when you saw it."
Oh, when I saw it, I don't know. First 2 years that it was out.
Okay, so a good 15 or so years ago.
Yeah. Okay,
and then Thor and Jen, when did you guys first see it?
About 45 minutes ago.
So
same.
So you guys, this is the first time you saw this movie almost 20 years after the fact. That's great, because and I'm going to come back to this later on in the episode because I want to examine that. So now we got that out of the way. Initial thoughts on Blair Witch Project. Whoever wants to go, it's open-ended.
It was very weird. It did not grab my attention. But I was like, oh, I haven't seen one of these before. How innovative.
Yeah. Oh,
I was going to throw it your way. Go on. Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well, now that it's been thrown my way, I would say, so I think kind of, it's one of those things where if you've seen all of the knockoffs, like the original doesn't seem as fresh as it would have if you'd seen it in the context. I thought it was, there's a lot of like talking, and I kept waiting, the scene that everyone would parody, because I mean, obviously I was still a person 20 years ago. The scene everybody would parody is the one where it's like the close up of her face and, and she's apologizing to the mothers and everything. And so that kind of thing, I'm used to like seeing, right? But then, I kept
to
waiting
see the original content of it.
Well, it just, I mean, I guess I didn't realize there was going to be so much just like, whiny 20-somethings just like,
oh my god, yeah,
babbling. so like the very beginning of the movie, and by the very beginning, I mean like the first half is like nothing's really happening. I mean, but I will say, one reason I like to see movies in theaters is because I think I'm really bad at watching movies at home, so that could be part of it too.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure if I'd watched it and, not like started, and I was reading trivia about the movie. I was trying to at least be like, related to the movie, but I wasn't looking at the screen the entire time. And I feel like that, exactly. So if I'd seen this in theaters, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And,
because cell phones barely existed.
Exactly, yeah. So it's sort of like, my impression is I think I would have been bored, especially because when it came out, it was just so hyped up. I feel like this movie had been hyped up for me for 17 years, but I feel like it would have been even more hyped up at the time. I remember people just going nuts for this movie, especially I think I was like in 8th grade or something, and people were just like, "It's the scariest movie ever! Oh my god!" And people walk around the woods with a camera, and I was just like, "This sounds really stupid." So I feel like I tried really hard to give it a chance, and it's like that's the thing. It's super innovative. I think the girl Heather is actually a really good actress, and she really plays her part really well. And obviously, all the dialogue's improvised, and she comes up with some really clever lines. But I think too much of it, is just them.
But you shouldn't be trying that hard to make it work.
Yeah,
it's so hard, and it's just like you're really pushing it.
Yeah, and I think versus, so I was thinking about, obviously, like, Paranormal Activity, was whatever it was, like, 10 years later, so they had, time to improve upon, base it on Blair Witch. But I just think of, like, how much more attention-grabbing that movie was. And then the third one I did only see, on Netflix just like this. It was just sitting there watching it while I was, like, doing some work. And that one did, I like, stopped, doing the schoolwork I was doing to watch the third one, to give it its undivided attention. So it was, like, the opposite experience. So I feel like it's sort of unfair to, compare a found movie from 1999 to one, that was written by a studio in, 2010s. But yeah, I guess that's the thing, is it's like when you watch like the really old like action movies from like the 50s and you're like, well, I get the idea that like, Robert Mitchum punching someone in the face just drove everyone nuts back then because no one had punched someone in the face before in a movie. But people are way better at shooting footage of people punching people in the face and it looking cool in action movies now.
What did you guys think of? Because Thor and Jen, you guys both bring up a really interesting points in how this movie was innovative for its time. It didn't invent the found footage genre, but it definitely mainstreamed it, I would say. And now I think I automatically think a horror movie is lazy if it's found footage, because it's just so kind of easy to do that. And it's really a cheap way to make a movie.
Very cheap.
And I forgot where I was going with this.
Where are you going?
I don't know.
I mean, so one thing I'll say about it that I think is kind of a point in its favor is that I think a lot of horror movies, it can be, you can do a lot with the tension, the cats jumping out of the, the closet or whatever, can be really like good, intense and, interesting build up. But then sometimes you get to the like actual villain of the thing and you're like, well, that's sort of goofy or, anytime you have like a CGI, sort of monster or whatever, a lot of times it will look, it's CGI. Like it may look okay, but it's CGI. And so I think, I do appreciate kind of this idea of not having an on-screen monster. Like I think that's pretty cool. And you
weren't even sure if there was an on-screen monster.
Well, okay, and
because you're never really sure. Like, did I just see it or what? So, because I do think that there is value in not showing the on-screen monster. But with this one, you weren't even sure if you were seeing it or not. So I don't think that they were effectively doing that.
So who do you think the killer was?
Definitely the Blair Witch.
No, I think it was in the scene at the beginning. There's the woman with her sunglasses on that has her little daughter who keeps interrupting her, and they don't ever interview the little 3-year-old daughter. So I think she got revenge for being cut out of the interview process.
And if you think the daughter kept trying to shut the mom's mouth at the beginning, so it's like, shut up, don't talk about it.
She's quiet. But I think we can agree that the Blair Witch actually did exist and was the instigator of all of the problems, right?
My theory is that the Blair Witch isn't a physical entity, that it's like it possesses people. And
I don't know. I don't know that I agree. I don't know that I think it was that there was an actual witch. I think some of that stuff could probably be because what really there was the blue slime on the backpack. There was the map disappeared. I think, but then they revealed
threw it out.
He just threw it out. Okay.
Yeah, Mike threw it out because he's. And then
at the end, you see what's his face standing by the wall, but you don't know what's happened to him or why he's not responding. But I don't know that you actually have any proof that something's happening. I mean, I think a lot of that could be, sleep deprivation and
well, there's the
food
weird
deprivation.
Little witch-shaped things, but all they say about that is, oh man, some rednecks couldn't have done this, but there's no reason they couldn't have,
right.
And there's no. To me, they didn't actually tie that into it actually being something related to the Blair Witch. It could have just been some dude's, weird security system to keep people from finding his meth lab.
I mean, I don't recall the meth lab part. And maybe meth was big back then, but I don't feel like it was as big. So maybe it was more like coke.
Hey, which one of us is from the area where they filmed this?
I don't know where they filmed it.
Maryland.
Perfect.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that when they're interviewing all the townspeople at the very beginning of the movie, you hear a lot of bits and pieces of the Blair Witch legend. And one of them has to do with that child killer who would kill kids, make one stand in the corner, and then while he murdered the other one, which is what happens at the end. And there's some legend that because it was in the woods, somehow he was connected to the Blair Witch. And it's just sort of touched upon, so it leaves it up to the viewer's imagination, like, well, how is this all connected? My personal belief is that the Blair Witch wanted to kill those kids because they desecrated the rocks at the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. And the witch targeted Josh because the slime was all over his stuff. And then he snaps and disappears. And I think at this point, that's when he's possessed by the witch, which leads him into the house, which, I don't know, maybe the witch has more power, which is how he got Mike to stand in the corner and clocked Heather over the head with whatever he did. That's just my personal theory. I don't know if it's true, but...
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I forgot the part about the killer. So yeah, I guess you're right. True. Possession makes sense. But yeah, that's what I think you're right is probably one of the stronger parts about this movie is they never have anything so ridiculous that you couldn't just be like, well, clearly there's some person out there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be supernatural, you know, which I think is cool. I think because then, you know, I'm someone that finds horror movies scarier if they're not supernatural. So I felt like that was, even though this movie didn't quite do it for me, that was what I liked, was that there wasn't any, like, you know, ghosts and shit, you know, or like an actual like witch riding around in a broom, which would have been the hokiest thing ever.
Oh my gosh, but it would have been so good. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the witch and the broomstick in the air over the. But
I mean,
that's just me.
The movie leaves it up to interpretation. It could be just a simple fact of one of them snapping and decide, let's go kill Heather. Because frankly, who didn't want to kill Heather by the end of the movie?
Oh, I liked Heather. It was Mike I didn't like.
He was a dick too, but I don't know. They were all. The premise of this film is summed up as thusly: 3 pretentious film students go into the woods, don't know what the fuck they're doing, and die.
I mean, Heather does say she likes to go to the woods to go hiking, you know, or that's what she'd previously liked to do, and now in the future she won't want to do that again. But like,
because she'll be dead. Right.
So I mean, there's clearly. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily think there was a Blair Witch, but I think, you know, you could say, I mean, as somebody who would rather be indoors than outdoors, definitely, I would say you can go a little nutty in the woods, you know?
Yeah. What's kind of funny is that she bought, like, at least 2 books about how to survive in the woods. Clearly, she did not read them.
I would do the same thing, though, to be fair.
No, but then you would be smart. You would buy the book, not read it, and then not go to the woods.
Okay, that's probably more accurate. That's true.
So, Nick, I feel like, you know, 3 of us are, you know, coming down pretty hard on this. So it sounds like you saw it the soonest. So it would have been sort of the, you know, closest to the cultural touchstone. Like, what did you remember at the time? Did you have fond feelings for it?
It was one of those. What's happening? Wait, what? Yeah. Huh?
Oh my god! Yeah.
That's an excellent description.
Yeah,
you know how like you can get the audio for like blind people to be able to watch a movie? They have the audio description. I think that's probably just the audio description for this. What the hell?
Well, there's a family.
I don't know. The camera's shaking. There's some.
There's a Family Guy bit back during the first iteration of Family Guy where Brian took a blind person. He was watching a blind person. He took him to go see a movie, and he's describing the movie. It's clearly they're watching Blair Witch. And it's like, nothing's happening. They're standing in a room, movie's over, everyone looks pissed. When the movie came out, it was one of those, it was so weird and different, no one quite knew what to make of it. And in the movie, whether good or bad, there are a lot of iconic cinematic moments, like the aforementioned Heather looking into the camera, apologizing, the bit at the end where Michael is standing in the corner, and so there are like bits and pieces in there, but it's like if this movie was made today, I think people would forget about it and kind of rip it a new one, because it's very open-ended and it doesn't really, there's no payoff, and the payoff that there is kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, because we're seeing the entire thing, just what's going on, and at the end we're still like, what just happened? There was no ending, there was no conclusion or like clarification as to something to clarify it, and it was just like.
So it's interesting because it's implied, you know, that they disappear or are murdered or something, you know. So I wonder, you know, watching the movie, I kept thinking, okay, so we're supposed to believe that this camera lived in the woods for a year and then they were able to recover the footage, because that doesn't make any sense. But then, you know, if it's in the house, obviously that makes sense. But then were there bodies? Like, you know, I feel like you should, if you're making a movie and you're trying to like predicate this on the idea that it's real, like you should say whether or not you found the footage next to a body.
Oh, like at the end, it should have had like a title card that said like, even if it was after all the credits to give you like time to get creeped out, it could have said like, you know, in loving memory of, you know, like whatever.
I mean, that would have been interesting, definitely. Yeah. But
And like a little piece of text, the way they did it at the beginning,
right.
like a piece of text related to this one, they could say like, whatever, like, Heather and Mike's bodies were found next to the cameras. Josh was never seen again or something, like
something like that.
Yeah.
Well,
and then it ends with Josh ripping through the screen like the Gremlin in Gremlins 2.
None of that.
Well, here's the interesting thing you bring up on this about that. When I was a junior, sophomore? I don't know, 1999. What? Yeah, sophomore in high school when this movie came out.
I like that you're asking us what your age was in 99.
It's rhetorical. Just go with it. No, I was a junior. Not important. And
we are not the ones who are thinking it's important.
All right, let's get your yearbook out.
Yeah. So when this movie came out, this was the very, very early pinnings of the internet, and at least internet as a mainstream thing. And what's interesting about this film is I would argue it's one of the first films to do a viral marketing campaign that was 100% successful, because there was a whole website dedicated to this. There was specials that aired on TV with going in with the presentation that this is real. This is not a movie. It's not like this was actually footage that people found. This is legit, and that ruse was maintained for a considerable amount of time. And I remember people at the time were adamantly thinking that this really happened. These are 3 kids that disappeared in the woods, got creeped out by whatever, and backed up by some documentaries that were made, a website dedicated to these missing college kids. There was some real question, like, is this a real thing?
And I would say, wow, like, how naive were we in 1999? But then I remember the Italian government actually brought the maker of Cannibal Holocaust to trial and made him go, like, find the actors and show that they were still alive.
So it's interesting how far we've come in a 20-year time span. I'm kind of curious if... Now, you guys saw it today, and obviously I'm assuming you knew that it was not real, that there's no doubt in your mind.
Right.
That if some of the terror came from this movie with the assumption that, hey, this happened, this could really have actually happened.
And that's the thing is, I remember at the time, that was like... I remember being a kid, growing up, in the Chesapeake Bay region. So I think this had an even bigger hype there because, that's where it takes place. And the Washington Post did like a big interview with the directors about like how the film worked, And I remember reading the whole thing and being really confused. It was only through like halfway through the interview that I got that they were directors, and because I guess they were being kind of vague about it, that they'd like hired actors and took them out into the woods and did this shit, Because yeah, exactly. When I started the interview, I thought it was going to be the quote unquote directors, meaning it was the guys that like edited together the footage of this snuff film,
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious if the film would still have its impact today. Like, say you take a group. This is an idea. This is not an original idea. I got it from another web series called Review. That if you took teenagers today, brought them into a movie theater, took away their cell phones and everything so they can't be looking stuff up as they're watching the movie, tell them this really happened, and show them the movie, and to see if they would buy into it or be scared with the idea that this happened to someone. That would be a very interesting experiment that I would love to see happen, which would never happen. But
well, I think since we have, preteens murdering people because Slender Man told them to, and Slender Man was always an admitted manufactured, bit of, it was a contest to create fake scary stories. So like, I feel like teenagers are idiots. So yeah, I think they probably believe you. But I get what you're saying,
especially because of that Slender Man. Especially because of that Slender Man.
Yeah. So it's like, Mike, I don't know if they necessarily be entertained or scared, but yeah, I think they believe you.
Yeah.
So I'd like to try to test that theory out for sure, though. But
I mean,
don't
I think
kidnap teenagers.
Right. I think it's sort of interesting because I think we're so much more as a culture these days. Like, people like have vlogs, where it's just like literally every day they put out a video about like their life, and they're just, I mean, some people are, obviously there's YouTube videos of people making, pasta sauce or doing hairstyles or something, but there's also just people who just have vlogs about their life, and that's kind of what the beginning felt like to me, was like one of those YouTube channels where people just talk about themselves endlessly. Like, I don't know. I found that boring because like that's definitely not my genre of like YouTube videos I'm gonna watch. But it did feel realistic to me that like these people would be recording all of this like weird monotonous shit of just like going to someone's house and being like, "Hey, Mike, it's time to go camping," or whatever.
I'm sorry, go on. I will give the movie credit in that, as opposed to other found footage films, which make you wonder, why are you still recording when you're being hunted by something? This movie actually sort of...
Get your priorities in line.
Yeah, this movie kind of explained it away a little bit better, enough to buy into it, where, like, this is Heather's life, this is all she does, and so it's one of the few things keeping her sane.
And they even had the line where he's like, "What the fuck, Heather? Don't you want to get us out of the woods? Why are you still recording?" And she's like, "It's all I have left."
Yeah.
So I felt like once you have the characters being like, "Heather, why are you still recording?" and she explains it to the characters, then she's explaining to the audience, which was smart. It's a very smart movie, but yeah, like Jen was saying, I don't. Yeah, we literally were like 45 minutes into it, and I was like, "There's only like 40 minutes left of this movie," and she's like, "Do you think stuff happens at some point?"
I love how they directed this movie. Like, all of it is improvised. The camera work is done completely by the actors. In fact, the guy who played Josh, who I think's real name is Josh, he's really not an actor by trade. He's a photographer, video photographer, and they needed someone who knew how to actually work these kinds of cameras. So that's how he got the position, got the job. And what had happened was that, like, each night, like, they knew stuff was going to happen in the woods, but they didn't know what it was, and they were supposed to react to it as they went along. So, like, each night, each day, it was the directors, like, they gave them a little summary of, like, this is what will happen. So, scene, go. And at night, they would, like, be fucking with them by playing, like, strange sounds in the woods and like the children laughing, I think you hear, and just to creep them out and to give them something to like work with. So, and that stuff they wouldn't necessarily tell what the actors what it was going to be, but they knew something was happening. They had to be ready to go to react to it. But it's a very interesting way to film a movie.
I was telling, Thor was reading the IMDb trivia or whatever, and he mentioned that to me, and I said, if someone hired me for a movie and they're like, "Okay, we need you to take your this film equipment. We're not gonna be there. You just need to go in the woods," and then and then they started like restricting your food, and they started and all of this.
They didn't
like,
do that. They gave
I
him
was getting
food.
Kidnapped.
No. The directors said that it was a week shoot, and by the end of it, they had those they had the little GPS thing that they could like that the directors could activate, and it would tell them where to go next, but they wouldn't know until the directors like sent the coordinates to it. And they said that they would, or maybe it was like a geo tracker and it went to some chip, either way that they'd move around, but either way, so they didn't know where they were going to go next, and they had these milk crates full of their supplies, like it had their motivations in the little like envelopes for each, but they said that the food each day there was less and less food.
Awesome. Yeah, it was so awesome.
Right. But like, I would not agree to be in this movie. Like, if someone cast me in a movie and was like, "Go out into the woods," and also we're definitely not going to kill you, I would be like, "No, you're going to kill me though."
Well, they had people around. I mean, it's not like the director said, "Have fun. We'll see you in a week. Hope bring back good footage." I mean, they were keeping an eye on them from afar to make sure everything was going okay.
Maybe I just don't trust people, but I would not like that.
Well, also they said it was based on a blind casting call from a New York like Backstage magazine, like a play, a theatrical magazine in New York. So yeah, exactly. Like you're in New York City and you meet these people, and I'm sure some like tiny, sketchy room because it was a $25,000 budget, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna drive you down to the middle of nowhere in Maryland and drop you in the woods, and we'll see you in a week."
Yeah. Not good enough, guys.
Yeah. Well, I was reading an interview with the woman Heather, and she was saying that they the whole time, both the directors and the cast just assumed this was going to, at best, make it onto, like, cable TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That she said if she'd known it was going to get a theatrical release, let alone become this cultural phenomenon, she said, I probably would have taken the time to hold the camera a lot steadier and focus.
Yeah, there is a lot of... I'm just surprised they didn't try to... I know it adds to the quote-unquote realism, but I'm surprised, because a lot of it is, like, running around, camera at the ground. There were even reports at the time that people were getting motion sickness when watching the movie.
Yeah. Even when, not to throw in some 2016 Blair Witch, but when we watched it, the Graveyard Queen was having a difficult time watching it because it was so shaky, and she's not used to watching these found footage movies like I am.
A lot of the found footage movies, I think, the modern ones, they tend to be more steady cam. Like,
a little bit more balanced.
Yeah, so you're not like... Blah.
The only found footage that actively made me nauseous was the VHS found footage anthology one, because it's like 4 different movies, and like so by the time I'd sort of get used to the camera aesthetic they were using of like moving the camera around in a certain way, that segment would end and there'd be a new segment where they'd move the camera around in a completely different way. Like I literally had to turn that one off because I was getting like nauseous. Like it was a good movie, but I was getting nauseous over it. Like,
yeah, I've never like felt ill from watching any of these, and I've seen, I think, most of the found footage movies out today.
I think the only time I've ever like actively gotten a little ill from watching a movie, I mean, beyond like some very gory movies. Actually, no, I'll take that back. 127 Hours. I like passed out when he broke his arm.
oh wow!
But I was gonna say no. That what was that first person like shooter movie that came out?
Hardcore
like,
Henry.
Yeah. I never saw the movie, thank God. But like just watching the previews, I'd be sitting in the theater, right? I don't know if it would have had the same effect on TV, but like being in the theater, I was just like, I have to look away or I will die. Like I will literally, like this is so much.
I do want to see that movie only for the gimmick and to see if it works.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good for like the first 45 minutes. It can sustain it, and then it like you have what you think's going to be the big ending action sequence, and then there's another like 30 minutes of just nonstop him punching people, and I was like, okay, movie, I get the idea. Henry is hardcore. Like, can we stop?
I guess, does anyone have any, because we're kind of running a little bit long here, anyone have any final thoughts on the Blair Witch Project, the 1999 film? And specifically, do you agree with the descriptions I gave at the beginning that's listed on the DVD box here?
No, it is not scary.
Not scary as hell?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few jumps, but all in all, it does not.
Did it give anyone chills right to the core?
I think my core remains unchilled.
The end where they're in the house was effective. That part, like when Josh left, I was like, oh, he was like the only character I vaguely liked, and I just like lost all interest. But then when we got to the end in the house, I rewound because I felt like I wasn't giving it enough attention for the end. Since so when I rewatched,
you shouldn't have to rewind it. You should be able to figure out what's happening.
Yeah,
and
so
there's so much confusion going on that you can't. It's 100% confusion, 0% scariness.
Yeah, and I was looking at the screen the whole time, and I was like, "What happened to that famous shot of like Josh in the corner?"
Right.
And we're talking, we're still not even sure if it was Josh or Mike. Yeah, right. So it's like, I get what you're saying exactly. So is it an effective movie if I'm like, okay, well, I watched it and then had to immediately rewatch it, and the part that I watched twice, I appreciated. So yeah. So I do want to ask. I know we're running long, but Gorhan, did you like the 2016 version any better?
Yes. It was, I felt like I had a better understanding of what was happening. I don't know why it was happening. But the camera was steadier. It was more logical because apparently they were using like a Bluetooth earpiece video camera. So you're not really holding it with your hands. It's more of, okay, you could just like
a
set it and forget it. Right. So
that
was more logical.
That's a great conceit, having it be an ear-mounted camera.
Right. Even though your cheek or hair would have been covering it pretty much the entire time, but I will leave that alone.
It's just shots of the corner of someone's hat.
Because honestly, if I
I'd love to see a movie like that.
That is what you're gonna see.
So I guess spoiler alert for the new one, but I know they said like something like halfway through they start to realize that the sun hasn't come up in like hours and hours and hours. So that was the part when I read that I was like, okay, the rest of this movie actually sounds terribly boring, but I thought that was a cool idea. So did that play off as well as it sounded?
Yeah, I mean, is time reversing itself? Are we going through? Is time like encapsulated within the forest? Like we're not really moving forward. We're kind of just staying in the same point. And it added a little bit more theory to it, but I still wasn't sure what was happening. Or like, does the Blair Witch exist? Is it acting through somebody? So it was the 1999. I would give it like a 2 out of 5, and this one, the 2016, I would give like a 3 out of 5. So it was better, but it still wasn't very good.
Yeah. That's a good point. Or maybe the studio realized how like boring this movie was and saw the tracking numbers. It did not do well. It did worse than Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2, which bankrupted Artisan Entertainment. Yeah. So maybe they saw those numbers and they're like, oh shit, we gotta like make some crap up. So they like leaked to the internet that you can see the witch in it.
Well, part of the reason I think this movie just didn't track very well is no one knew it was a Blair Witch movie until like 2 weeks before the movie came out.
Yeah.
It was
when J.J. Abrams makes a secret movie, everyone gets excited. When some asshole at Lionsgate makes a secret movie, no one cares. Like,
it looks like they were trying to take the Star Wars: The Force Awakens approach in a sequel/reboot.
Yeah,
and it probably would have done better had people known that it was coming. But go figure.
I don't know about that, Nick. Like, I mean, do you really think you know better than Hollywood?
Jen, this podcast is all about how Hollywood could be doing better if they just listened to our advice. So that's the whole thing.
That's good. That's
Hollywood.
Good. We'll speak this.
Yeah.
Dear Hollywood, please listen.
Dear...
for our free advice. We should be charging them.
Are you there, Hollywood? It's me, Margaret.
Perfect.
Would you recommend people seeing Blair Witch 3, The Witchening?
Perfect.
Is it the third one?
Technically, it is the third one. The second one, I will give the second one credit. They did a sequel.
What happens in the second one?
It's weird. It almost seems like it was a completely unrelated movie, but they slapped Blair Witch on it to cash in. But the second one is about a group of people who want to go into the woods as a response to the first movie. So in the second one, the movie exists as a movie, not as like this really happens necessarily. And so they want to. If memory serves, like,
no, I think you're right. That's just crazy.
I mean, it's novel in its approach for a sequel. Because really, if you want to do a sequel to the Blair Witch Project, how can you actually do it? With the exception of, I guess, giving Heather a previously unmentioned brother that is a baby when she is 22. Which is funnier because I was rewatching the Blair Witch Project for this podcast a few days ago, and it said, like, she says, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad." No mention of any siblings, so I guess screw them.
Well, she's not sorry to the baby. It's basically the baby's fault. You know what I'm saying?
Clearly, but
I just came into the woods so I wouldn't have to change any more fucking diapers.
Or maybe the baby wasn't born yet. Maybe they were like pregnant with the baby, but they hadn't had the baby yet.
Do they acknowledge that in the new one, Gorehound? If the kid was alive when his sister disappeared?
I don't recall. I just know that he was trying to find his sister was probably dead. So I was like, all right, well, you're going to find... If you find her, she's just going to be dead because I don't think anybody could survive in the woods like that.
But, yeah, in the second one, it's about... Because the first movie had a huge reaction. Like, was it real? Is it not real? We should find out. Let's look into it. So the second movie kind of played on that as its central premise. And then it turned out to be awful for completely unrelated reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's crazy, though. Like you said, that is a ballsy idea, though.
Like I don't know how you make a sequel to that movie. Like they probably don't acknowledge
here's my pitch for the sequel. it turns out that Heather survives. Josh is evil. So her and a team of highly trained mercenaries go in to fight Josh and that Todd McFarlane Blair Witch.
I would love to see a movie about that.
Oh, I'm busy that week.
Mhm.
I can't go see it.
They could call it the Blair Witch Force.
Yes.
So Hollywood, call us.
One last thing before we start to close this baby down. I am glad that this movie was made because after this we saw a lot more found footage films. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was in response to this or if they would have been made still if this wasn't made.
But I guarantee you his response because this movie made bank.
Yeah.
$246 million.
Yeah,
so many dollars
on a $25,000 budget.
Yeah, when Hollywood
even though there were a lot
money.
of really bad movies that came out that were found footage, there were also a lot of very good ones.
Like what? Quarantine? That movie sucked.
Wreck,
the original.
Wreck, the original,
which I think Quarantine was based on that. What didn't it?
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I had
the original Paranormal Activity,
and the third one. I like the third one too.
I think that they are awesome, and they're very, very scary. And there's a lot of other they are found footage, but they don't really need to be. Like Troll Hunter. Have you seen that one?
No, but I know what it is.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I mean, it's not scary or anything, but it is a fun film that really takes advantage of the found footage aspect. So, I mean, I do believe that there are a lot of good found footage ones out there, but there's also a lot of really bad ones too.
Yeah. And then look at when they finally made a Scream sequel after all these, a lot of it was about like found footage and uploading uploading the killer's videos to the internet and stuff like that. So I feel like, this, obviously, the internet changed things too, but I think this kind of kicked off the whole idea of like, it's scarier if it's just some asshole waving his camera at ghosts.
Mm-hmm. But that's my closing thoughts.
I have no trivia today. Thor, you gave me an idea for trivia when I saw you for brunch this morning. Yes, we eat brunch. We're classy like that. But
Thor, what was the question? What was the trivia question that you had brought up? Do you remember?
Yeah, the problem is I did not think to look up the answer yet.
I did look up the answer.
Good.
I'm too lazy to come up with a question. So after the Blair Witch Project hit big, the producers, the directors, whoever, they were in like hot demand, and they were credited to make a TV show by Fox. Now, Thor, you usually said the show did not air. In reality, it did air, but under a different name.
That's what happened. They did these commercials. And it had this name, and then so it did eventually come out, but they changed the name. That's weird, because I remember there's a big marketing push in front of actual, like movies in theaters.
Yeah, it was originally titled Fearsome, Fearsum, and it changed the name to Freaky Links. Oh my God, what just happened?
That can't be real.
No, I think we see why this show was short-lived. They changed it into Freaky Links.
Well, the idea behind Freaky Links is that it's centered on a character who ran a website called FreakyLeaks.com, hence the name. And they investigated paranormal investigation. So it pretty much played into the whole X-Files type of thing, which was very popular at the time. So
that is literally. Like, there was a show called Selfie, and this is the worst title I've ever heard of for a TV show.
The show was really cute. I liked it a lot.
With a title like that, though, I feel it would be dated within 5 years.
Yes.
You know what they should have called it? Freaky Links.
No, they should not have called it that.
Nick, thank you for picking up that little breadcrumb and finding out that this show is called Freaky Links. That is my favorite thing that has happened to me all week.
That's incredibly sad, but you're welcome.
All right, calm down.
All of my laughs will have to be edited out.
Yes, this editing job is going to take way longer than anticipated. So, yeah, that's, I think, going to do it for us for the Blair Witch Project. I don't think anyone has any final thoughts. And if they do, I don't care. So,
no.
For all of us here, thank you for joining us tonight, Thor. Check him out at his Thor's Hour of Thunder at whatever the website it is. He said it earlier, so rewind the podcast and you can check it out.
And I just want to say I'm sorry to the Gorehound's mom and Jen's mom and Nick's mom, because all the dumb stuff in this episode was my fault.
Nice. It's a Blair Witch reference.
Thank you.
I got it. I got it. All right.
Thank you for letting me on. I'm genuinely sorry if I ruined the audio.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. So, alrighty. For all of us here, I'm Nick.
I'm the Gorehound.
I'm Jen.
I'm Thor.
This has been the All New Culture Cast. Have a great week, everyone. You've been listening to the All New Culture Cast, where every episode is all new. Check out our blog, Zach and Nick's Culturecast, at znculturecast.wordpress.com, and find us on social media. Send us an email at nick.culturecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests. Theme music by bensound.com. The All New Culturecast, a Saltwater production, copyright 2016.
Is Jewish cokehead a stereotype?
I mean, it is now.
Fair enough.